You see, when you fight a war, you do use lies. Churchill was the biggest liar. What is rather like a flywheel begins to spin. It's set in motion by the propaganda ministerium, by the propaganda officials, whatever they're called. In England they were called the Political Warfare Executive, PWE. Some of our most important subsequent politicians, like Richard Crossman, were leading figures in PWE, and they set out the lies that persuade the soldiers that the war is worth fighting. And they create the war aims for the soldier. We British, we never had war aims, of course. We went into the war ostensibly because of Poland, but by 1939, by the end of that year, of course, that war aim had completely vanished. Poland had gone up the spout or down the tubes, whichever the way you care to look at it, and invaded from the east by the Russians, from the west by the Germans. Poland as such had ceased to exist. By the spring of 1940, really, the war had no further point. So Churchill, when he became Prime Minister, set up the big lie that the British Empire was endangered, that Hitler planned to attack the British Empire, that he was going to invade Britain, and then this made the war of great import for Britain. We had to fight, otherwise it meant perdition and oblivion for ourselves. Of course, the Americans weren't interested in preserving the British Empire. Quite the opposite. We find out that President Roosevelt was saying in the spring of 1942 that his great dream and ambition is the destruction of the British Empire, beginning with India. He says that in a cabinet meeting in May 1942, and one of his secretaries of state, the vice president, in fact, Henry Wallace, wrote that down in his private diary. The destruction of the British Empire was the president's aim, and that man was our ally. How extraordinary. And yet we find at the same time now in the German papers, the secret German records of the time, and also pale reflections, pale echoes in the British papers, we find that at the same time Hitler was telling us, both before the war and during the war, right through 1940, indeed right through to May 1941, the famous mission of Rudolf Hess, Hitler was telling us that he had no aims against the British Empire at all. No desires, no wishes, no claim on the British, although we declared war on him. He wanted, in fact, the British Empire to remain as a great force for world civilization and stability. He said in private, as I know from his private staff, again and again, what point would there be for me to destroy Britain now or to attack London, the heart of the British Empire?